Okay, imagine two beloved brands, Dobbies, a 160-year-old garden centre chain, and TGI Fridays, an absolute staple in the restaurant industry, both announcing major store closures. Now, what's happening behind the scenes? Today we're going to dive into the financial struggles that led Dobbies and TGI Fridays to shut stores across the UK, the restructuring plans in place, and the crucial lessons businesses can learn to avoid a similar fate. So if you're a business owner, regardless of the size of your business, or you're just curious about the shifting retail landscape, stick around. Chris Worden, welcome back to the Director First YouTube channel, where we break down complex business and insolvency issues in the UK to make them easy to understand. Today's video is packed with important insights, as we're going to be looking at two big names that have recently announced store closures: Dobbies Garden Centres and TGI Fridays. Now, both brands have been forced to take drastic measures to stay afloat, closing dozens of stores and laying off hundreds of workers. But how did they both get here? I mean, what went wrong and how are they planning to recover? Listen, let's talk about Dobbies Garden Centres first and the struggle to stay profitable. So Dobbies are a household name in the garden centre business. I've got one down the road from me, nice little drive out, do a lovely breakfast. Despite its long history though, Dobbies is now being forced to close 17 out of its 77 stores, and it's by the end of this year. Obviously this video is coming to you in October 2024. Now this includes shutting down 11 unprofitable garden centres and 6 little Dobbies which were high street sites. What's the key issue? From what we can gather, the problem has been historically uneconomical rent costs. Now, Dobbies have been struggling with stores that simply aren't making enough money to justify those high rent costs. Now, they're going to go into something called a restructuring plan, and is expected to affect 465 staff, of which 82 are full-time employees. However, the plan doesn't stop there. Dobbies is also negotiating rent reductions at 9 other locations as part of its broader effort to reduce overheads and return back to a sustainable profit. Now, why did these financial woes happen for Dobbies? Because every time I go in there, it's absolutely booming. But I suppose I only go in there probably once every year on a Sunday near Christmas. But Dobbies have been grappling with financial problems for some time. Now listen to this. They reported a pre-tax loss of £105.2 million for the year leading up to March 2023. Wow, eye-watering numbers. Now Dobbies was acquired by basically Aris Management, and they were acquired last year. And while this acquisition was intended to sort of stabilise the business, the pressure of the unprofitable locations and high rents have continued to mount. Now, originally, Dobbies were going to consider something called a company voluntary arrangement. It's a CVA for short. And it was really aimed was to put pressure on landlords into lowering their rents. But now they've opted for something called a restructuring plan instead. So what's the difference between these two approaches? Well, a CVA is a process that allows a company to renegotiate things like rent and exit leases with court approval. And it's typically used to deal with unsecured creditors, such as landlords, or the HMRC can be included, suppliers can be included. Now, a restructuring plan is a bit more comprehensive, and it involves both secured and unsecured lenders. Now, it allows the company to restructure its debts and operational costs while receiving court approval to ensure all stakeholders are involved. So, what's next for Dobbies? Well, despite these closures, Dobbies is not giving up. The company will continue to operate 60 stores. That's across the UK, and it's going to focus on its more profitable locations. So the restructuring plan also includes rent reductions, site rationalisations and other cost-saving measures to secure Dobbies' long-term future. Now they're committed to continuing the role in the market and they're working closely with suppliers and communities. And it happens a lot. You know, I get an inquiry of somebody that might have multiple sites, and what the business really needs to do, it's not just close the business and walk away. They need to get rid of some unprofitable sites. They need to make some redundancies. They need to go and get some breathing space with suppliers, pay over a longer period of time. These big stories, they can work for your business too. Now, let's talk about TGI Fridays, latest casualty in the restaurant industry. So it's another major brand, TGI Fridays, and it's feeling the pinch. So this chain has announced that it's going to close up to 34 of its UK stores, and they're saying that it's poor sales and rising costs. So listen, the whole casual dining sector has been absolutely malleted in recent years, and TGI Fridays is no exception. I mean, like Dobbies, TGI Fridays is facing tough decisions to actually stay in business. So let's dig into why it's actually struggling. Now, there are a few key reasons why TGI Fridays has been forced to close down so many of its restaurants. The first reason is obviously rising operational costs. The restaurant industry has absolutely been smashed, particularly hard, by rising food costs. Energy bills went through the roof a few years ago, and even though they've dropped, if you compare them to sort of 2019, they're still incredibly high. And wages are going up. It's harder to recruit staff. Now, these factors have significantly increased the cost of running a restaurant, and it's making it difficult for TGI Fridays to actually turn a profit in many locations. Another thing that's affecting them is there's changes in consumer behaviour. You know, since getting locked down for nearly 2 years, most people have shifted their dining habits. People are eating out less frequently, and when they do, they're often opting for less expensive options or takeaways. Not cheap to eat in TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays has struggled to adapt to this shift in consumer behaviour. And another thing that you're going to see as well is there's a lot more competition. You know, the casual dining sector is incredibly competitive. There's lots of new players entering the market. They're offering more niche or locally sourced menus. I mean, me personally, I'd much rather go to a local restaurant than a big chain. Now, TGI Fridays has faced stiff competition from smaller, more agile restaurants that can cater to changing consumer tastes. You know, it's like, what's going to happen next for TGI Fridays? Well, just like Dobbies, they're not disappearing from the UK altogether. The chain is still going to operate, but a reduced number of restaurants, and they're going to focus on more profitable locations. What they're going to have to do is adapt to changing market conditions to survive, and this could mean reducing costs, refreshing their brand, or even tweaking their menu to better align with current consumer preferences. Now, these are massive brands, and what I like to add into these videos is what lessons a smaller business owner can learn from the likes of TGI Fridays and Dobbies. Now, both of these businesses provide some very important lessons for other businesses facing financial difficulties. So let's break down some key takeaways. Number one, manage your costs early. Because both of these brands, the high cost of rents and the operational expenses have got out of hand. It's played a major role in their eventual financial struggles. Now, businesses, you've got to regularly assess that profit and loss. Look at overheads, particularly rent, you know, particularly suppliers, you know, are these sustainable? If they're not sustainable and you see a problem coming, it's better to have an early negotiation, because then maybe you'll be able to get a better deal off your suppliers, and that'll prevent the need for drastic cuts later on. You know, didn't mean to swear at everybody there. Number two, though, diversify income streams. You know, both companies have been hit hard by the change in consumer behaviour. Dobbies have got fewer customers visiting its high street stores. TGI Fridays with reduced dining out. I mean, we saw, you know, well, Wilkinson's, wasn't it? Wilkinson's were a massive brand. One of the key reasons that went pop is people are going to the high street less. They're opting to go out of town, you know. TGIs have got reduced people dining out. Diversifying revenue streams, whether it's offering, you know, going online, delivery services, pop-up events. What it can do is help spread the risk and provide more stability in times of change. Another key thing here is adapting to changing customer preferences. You know, consumer preferences, they're always evolving, they're always changing. Businesses need to stay agile to survive. TGI Fridays has struggled to compete with smaller, more flexible competitors that can offer sort of locally sourced food and unique dining experiences. Businesses have got to regularly assess their product or service offerings and ensure that they align with what's going on. And that's sometimes where the little people have got the benefit, you know. If you're small, I mean, us here, we can make a decision, we can change it this afternoon. I've worked with some of these big firms and it's like they have meetings about meetings about meetings. You know, if one of them wants to go and have a toilet, they've got to talk to somebody about going to the toilet. It's insane. So being small, being agile can really help in times where things are changing. You know, a thing to consider is a comprehensive restructuring plan. You know, a CVA is a common solution for struggling businesses. A restructuring plan, like the one Dobbies is implementing, can offer more flexibility. It can involve both secured and unsecured creditors. Businesses can gain the support they need to restructure debts and streamline operation. Additionally, you can seek court approval, and that provides greater protection against future challenges. You know, one of the things you can consider is, you know, if you believe actually the business in its current guise isn't going to work, you can look at some type of pre-pack. And that's where you start up a new company or a separate company, still headed by the directors, and the directors make an offer to purchase the assets of the insolvent company. And I've seen this done with businesses that have multiple sites. They've got onerous leases on multiple sites and they've become insolvent. And what they've done is they've liquidated the insolvent business, and in the new company they've negotiated leases on the sites they want to keep. They've bought the assets from the insolvent company and they've started again debt-free. Now that's not for everything, it's not for everybody that, but it's something you can consider. You know, you can't be afraid of store closures, you know. Even though you've got a, you know, closing a store or location, it's never an easy decision. Sometimes it's necessary, especially if you want to return to profitability. Both TGIs and Dobbies, they're focusing on the most profitable locations rather than trying to keep unprofitable stores open. You know, another lesson here is what makes you money in your business. You know, focus on the stuff that makes you money as opposed to the you know, the lines and the services that can become a pain in the arse. I'll tell you what we stopped doing. We used to help people negotiate time to pay arrangements with the HMRC, and we charge them a fee. But the problem, as you all know now, is it's absolutely murder speaking to somebody at the HMRC that can actually make a decision. And when we totaled up how many hours we were actually spending on hold, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, we're only a small business, we're charging £1,000 to do this, but it's taking us 10 hours to get it over the line. That's £100 an hour. Or we can be, and we're missing calls for that £5,000 liquidation, that administration where the fees might be 10, 15, 20,000 pound, and we just made the decision to say we're stopping doing that now. You know, keep your mind open. Now, I want to finish sort of on the road ahead that we believe for both TGI Fridays and Dobbies. Despite significant store closures, they're both determined to move forward. Okay, Dobbies are going to focus on the remaining 60 garden centres. TGI Fridays are going to continue to operate a reduced number of restaurants. The key for both of them will be to streamline operations, manage costs effectively, and stay agile in a changing market. Now, in summary, both of these firms are making really difficult decisions to close stores, reduce costs in order to survive. Now listen, what they're doing is tough. It's tough for the employees, it's tough for the communities affected, but they're necessary to ensure the long-term sustainability about these brands. Now here's the problem is, you're going to have to, as a business owner, sometimes you're going to have to make really, really tough decisions. And that might be changing suppliers. That might be making redundancies. You know, these are not nice decisions to make, okay? But as a business owner, this is the bad end of the stick. There's some real good times in business and there's some times that aren't great. What I believe businesses can learn from these restructuring efforts are cost management. It's critical you keep an eye on all your expenses. Adapt to market changes. Keep a finger on the pulse about what your customers are after. Be flexible. You know, look at things like CVAs, look at restructuring options, look at potential pre-packs before things become too late and too severe. Listen, I'm really grateful that you watched Direct to First YouTube channel. If you found the video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notifications bell for more insights on business restructuring and insolvency in the UK. Let us know in the comments what you think about Dobbies and TGI Friday's closures. Could they have done anything differently in your eyes? Thank you for your time. Chris Worden, Direct to First.